Hello. Broderick Wallace reporting for duty. Just wind the window up. I'm going to talk a little bit about van life again today, but from a more down to earth perspective, not so much focusing on the meditation and all this stuff, although it's always very important to keep that up, and I do. And we all have rough patches, we all have difficult times, unless we've literally broken some kind of barrier and created some kind of eudaimonia, then you're going to have difficulties come up, and they might take you by surprise. So for 2 years I've been living in this van. My weight's gone up and down, mainly up. I've had stints of hitting the gym. I've had stints of eating, trying to attempt to eat the way I used to eat before I embarked upon this lifestyle, which was pretty much eating like what I would imagine a Neolithic person would eat. Because I always found this, just about to say, extremely appealing, just as this lovely blonde pulls up, sorry. I found this extremely nourishing, and I don't know what it was, just like you get home after work and you just get all these vegetables, just not the same ones every night, but there will be favourites like parsnips and what do you call it? How can I forget? What do you call it? Broccoli. And whatever, just chuck some onions in there and a few spices, usually oregano and some, gravy granules. And then you would cook the meat, usually separately, because that was more doable back then, having more space and things. But you can just chuck the meat in somewhere towards the end, because you don't want it to be too rubbery from the boiling. So just before, about 5 minutes before you think it's all going to be done, boiled up, and all the vegetables are soft enough, you just throw the meat in. It's like, there's something about fruit, although it's very good for you, something about the sugariness of fruit, which I've noticed, which can be harmful when you, and the acidity as well in certain fruits. There's, just speaking personally here, like I know I'm allergic to so many things. Like if I eat just a little bit too much sugar, I just put on weight. My system doesn't like bread. I'll get the acid indigestion, which I have to take the remedy for quite often. So it's like anything, post farming, like anything to do, like it's literally as soon as humanity kind of invents farming and bread and sugar eventually is in, you name it, like anything that isn't just absolutely ground level simple vegetables and meat, or maybe just a minute amount of sugar or bread or whatever would be okay, but certainly not. It certainly agitates my system. Cheese as well agitates my system. So like, it's the most boring thing in the world to hear someone talk about what food they've learned over the years. And it doesn't matter whether you've learned or not. If you're spending a lot of time on your own, even if you're finding such bliss in your practice, there's still going to be enough darkness, enough time alone, enough trial, enough difficulty, whereby, let's face it, what human being doesn't seek out some kind of comfort? And for reasons that I don't want to go into, I've had to experience more time alone than I would have chosen to. And this has had some extreme benefits, but it's also been just the most harrowing experience, to be honest, when you are separated from people that you need and love. And that's all I'll say. See, when you get into a cycle, and I'm not giving it the whole hero story or whatever, like I will always manage. I've got a mission to complete, I've got things to do, I'm going to get there. But it can be more comfortable, and I can be more successful more of the time. So I'm starting to learn more and more about a kind of a spiritual practice in balance with physical reality, and how your environment and your interactions with people and all these things play off of each other, and how all of the parameters, when you turn something down somewhere, something will go up somewhere else. And every now and then you're going to fuck up. Now, the most important thing to do when that happens is to, as I've said, tie yourself to the mast, the central pillar of your practice. Like with me, even if I need the money desperately, I'll just take a day off. I've struggled with addiction to cigarettes from time to time. It's something that I absolutely revile, to be honest. So I will make sure that there's no addictive substance involved. Alcohol as well, like I fell into a trap of using that to relax in the evening about a year ago. You know, all of these things, all of these traps. And it's important to be honest and say, even with the amount of dedicated time that I've put into a meditative practice, I have still experienced quite the roller coaster of temptations and failures. So there's all different kinds of ways that you can mess up, and it might not necessarily be entirely your fault. So a little bit of self-compassion is in order. The ways that you can mess up is through your interactions with people. Now, if you're naturally very honest, then even if you are willing to sort of be objective and stand outside of yourself and say, oh, maybe I'm, this and that, sometimes your honesty, like you just can't get away from the fact that some people are competitive or sneaky or constantly after, even if they don't know they're doing it, they're gonna wind you up. So I have to keep reminding myself, like, play long-term games, or don't play games, rather play a long-term genuine series of interactions, because when other stresses are involved, sometimes you can let yourself down, and I'll be the first one to admit that. And I will say that sometimes it's a mistake to say too much, but it's also a mistake to remain too quiet. So I will be more choosing about the things that I do talk about and don't talk about from now on. But I'm glad, I feel quite proud actually that there is an evolution in this channel. I've been honest, and sometimes I've even felt myself getting close to the edge. I've never gone over it completely according to my current mind state in that moment, in that time. But I have made all of these mistakes. I have had all of these difficulties. You see, when you spend too much time on your own, I remember seeing this on a YouTube video, an experiment. This is absolutely awful, but like just getting a monkey and just shoving it in a box, basically, and all it's got in there is just food. Just leave it in there for about 3 months and release it, and it just can't function anymore, doesn't want to live. Its mind, through intense boredom, has been destroyed, through the silence, through the lack of human interaction. Now, even though I'm free and I work all day outdoors, I can tell you that interactions on the internet mean next to jack diddly squit when it comes to solving this problem. Oh, 4 o'clock. Time flies. Yeah, so trouble is that when you're quite a different alternative person, you don't necessarily make friends so easily. Although when you do make a bond, it can be lifelong. And those bonds tend to be more rare. And you will find that when you mix with people, mostly on the internet, but sometimes in real life through shared spiritual concerns, you may find that they're very sensitive. And you may find that your honesty is like a bludgeon. It has a bludgeoning effect upon even with the best will in the world. Have to understand that people are like chemicals. You get A and B together, they're fine. You put A and C together, you get a negative reaction. And you have to understand as well that some people, through their psychology, are all about winning some way or another. And spirituality may be the way that they've picked to win. Another interesting thing to throw in here is, people are always banging on about this kind of, is reality a simulation? Of course it's not. And the parallels that we find with digital technology, it is a kind of sickening experience, but there are some parallels, although extremely crass, do hold merit. So, for instance, this relates to psychedelics as well. A lot of people who've taken psychedelics have experienced an almost strange kind of pixelating effect where reality breaks down, or strange noises and things that they do seem to have. There are certain realms of experience that do seem to match up with a kind of almost as if you're in a computer game, and all of a sudden, when you say you wander into a specific area and there's a bug or something and it's pixelating and you can see through the wall, or maybe it just crashes. There are weird things that happen like that. It's very hard to deny. But you see, when you involve the reality of emotions and morality and all this kind of thing, it just goes way beyond the blocky sort of crass construction of anything that you could imagine that is a simulation. I think that's it's just too modern, and it's too poor in its description. But there are certain similarities, and I do definitely get that. So imagine that life, let's just play the game. Imagine that life is a computer game. What happens when you're in a computer game? There are a set and series of rules whereby you have to go up against challenges, and you can earn credits, whether it's like you get, pick up the health bar, acquire the energy or the armor. You have to walk around solving puzzles and defeating people. So most people are like that. They're dropped into the game, They're not looking at the pixels. They're not thinking about the big picture. They're not wandering up to that strange glitch and asking themselves, like, who am I? Where am I? They're just simply playing the game. And some people get dropped into an area where there's no ammo or health close by, and there's just big monsters, and they just can't win. And it's brutal. And sometimes in life we might wander into an area like this. We may we may have to get by on very little for a long time, or whatever. We may end up wandering for a long time before we can understand the rules even, or it may be incumbent upon us to intuit or construct a series of rules. But anyway, if you are made, if it's your natural inclination to sit and wonder about where you are and what's going on, to behold the simulation, remember we're playing the game, you're going to start losing. People around you, they're too busy picking up the medipack, you know, destroying the, you know, imagine it's Doom or whatever. They're too busy blasting demons while you're sitting there, you know, trying to make friends of them or deconstruct them or understand where they come from. This is the trouble with, you know, with spiritual people, and I've fallen into this trap. And, you know, many of us have. But is it a trap really? Because, you see, you have to lose the game for a little while in order to obtain a greater knowledge of the game. So you start learning about the pixels, you start learning about the enemies, what happens when you refuse to play the game. Everything gets harder. So you learn, I need to play the game enough. Right, I'm playing the game enough. And then I'm dedicating a certain amount of time to trying to understand the metagame, or even the glimpses of the perhaps the hardware of the screen or the console that is running the game. Now this is a really weird concept. It has been raised before by I can't remember the name of the guy, because I only viewed his interview once, but this has been raised before by a scientist, and I would say that what he's lacking in his approach is when he talks about hacking this game. This really is possible magically, but the only way that you can start hacking the game magically for most people in you know, wherever they're dropped into the game, is to go through a period of losing in order to learn something about the environment and to undergo a certain amount of damage whereby they can be respawned, if you like. You could use any number of analogies here, but this is the way it seems to work. And this is the problem, it's a natural system. Even spiritually speaking, it seems to be a natural system, even though morality and all these things count and they have weight, and ultimately they probably carry serious weight. We're still here, and people have described, you know, interactions with entities and this kind of thing. I think Jason Louv said it's arseholes all the way up and all the way down. I get what he means, and I do disagree with his worldview in many ways. But anyone who is interested in these subjects is also going to find a lot to agree on. So, and I find that with all of the authors that I read, or even just, you know, watch their stuff online, And people seem to split into the same old categories. It doesn't matter, where you look, what's going on. It's always a left, right thing going on, because it's very difficult to hang around in the middle. And it is kind of easy to just say, look, I'm not taking part. But if you don't take part, then lots of other people playing the game are going to be taking part, and it's going to change things. It's a very difficult thing to call. Like, I like to sit in the middle, but I'm definitely leaning more towards the right side of things than the left, even though there's certain aspects of the I believe that, a bit like Jordan Peterson says, like, you need that push and pull. Like, we need certain amounts of moralistic examination and liberty. Yet at the same time, there's a danger of totalitarianism and as I've talked about before, that we are just basically being farmed, right? And that's undeniable, especially when you're talking about speed cameras and court systems and all. Even if it's for your own good, it's for your own good. But I tell you, you try getting on the other side of that system where they've decided that you're the enemy. They will do everything they can to destroy you, but they'll just soften it with a few counselors and specialists that are supposed to help you or whatever. That's just for show for the most part, even though they do tend to be very honorable people. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit off subject. So while you're in this game that isn't really a game, that bears some analogy to digital constructs and computer games, you have to lose, not only to obtain knowledge, this kind of gnosis, but you have to lose in order to undergo changes. And what the scientists couldn't possibly understand, because it involves a certain amount of faith in practice, is just how real these changes can be when kept up in a long-term practice. I can't say anything more than that, except because I have chosen to be a communicator, and I will continue to be a communicator. It's, when you break new levels, it's shocking. And we get into the benefits and the problems of hierarchy and all that kind of thing. So everyone wants to believe, especially when they get to a certain age, and this is what's hard about being in your 40s, you kind of need to have you need to feel like you are a specialist somewhere, somehow, that you have something to say, something to contribute. And I can say that I may have done that musically or artistically, but when it comes to practically, not so much, because I'm the guy that sat there staring at the pixels, wondering, who made the console. And I've only just started to reap the benefits of this through extreme trials and deprecation and a lot of losing, with the occasional victory, no doubt. And I do have a friend actually who says I would never recommend this to anyone, and I kind of know where he's coming from, because it will destroy you, to be honest. But anyway, getting back to what the scientists cannot know. The scientists cannot know. The scientists cannot know what I can't really put into words, because although I choose to be a communicator, and I'm trying to be wiser about this as time goes on, I have made I wouldn't exactly say major boo-boos, but I've got close to the edge a few times. But everything on here is private enough, and that's all part of the journey. That's the risk that I've taken. You do take a certain amount of risk, but you see, damned if you do, damned if you don't. So let's get this back to the lifestyle thing and the health and the food and all that kind of thing. Like, if you're going to play the meta game, if you're going to play these long-term games, if you're going to play games which people don't even take seriously anymore in this day and age, you start to learn quickly in your process of losing to win that bloody hell, you really need to look after yourself physically, especially with all the isolation. Especially, I mean, I'm working physically. I clean windows all day, every day. How many times I've got to go up and down a ladder, which I carry on my shoulder, and a bucket of water in the other hand. There's a shortage of gas bottles as well at the moment, so I can't even actually cook unless I build a fire. But until that problem's sorted out, I find that as long as I do that at least a couple of times a week, that I intake a lot of vegetables and meat, and I do my best to, this isn't achieved yet with me, obviously, but so I won't talk about plans as such, that would be unwise, but I'm just telling you I know what works and what doesn't. Empty stomach with meditation and practice is really valuable, beneficial. The things that are intuitively healthy and good for you just are. And we build up addictions to various substances, and the cause of these addictions is because of the lack of human interaction, which the internet will not solve. And what I've learned is that you can go through phases. This could apply to so many people in so many situations, not just these specifics of this channel. That you always enter this stage where it's like, right, I know what I need to do. I know how I need to carry on. And you can be a few weeks in of just extreme health, extra meditation, just no addiction problems, just a dynamo of progress, and you know, you long-term plans are starting to come through a little bit here and there. You're starting to see, starting to see the light. You're starting to imagine good things. You're becoming confident, and all of a sudden, even this will become stale if it's not coupled by a really viable and visceral success. And this just ain't going to come along every day. And I'm talking about in my specific circumstances. Even though I have the beauty of the countryside any night that I want, I'm still spending a lot of time alone, in inverted commas. I'm not always alone, but there are different types of company, right? This is all part of the situation that I'm going through. But like I said, you can fix things up, and what you come to is you come to a point where everything's working, and then you just it usually involves some kind of calamity that is not your fault and is unforeseen, where you desire complete escapism, and it usually involves some kind of self-abuse in order to create the amount of escapism you want, you know, the kind of healing that you need. You just come upon a psychological crisis, basically. And what you need to do when this happens, I'm not pretending to be an expert, and I'm not going to go into specifics or say when this has happened or exactly where I am now. I'm not stupid enough to say that. I'm just saying, you can only know through the amount of times you've messed it up how important it is to know that this shall pass. This moment shall pass. And if you can see it through, you know you're going to hit those good times again, and they'll be even better. And I believe that if you can achieve this enough, and it's so hard, I know it's so hard, eventually you may be able to all intents and purposes, unless there's extraordinary circumstances, be able to leave these constant fluctuations behind. You may be able to come into, you know, some kind of eudaimonia through the build-up of self-esteem, through success and self-trust and not giving in. But the only way that you can get there, the only way that you can know this, is through the amount of times that you've failed. Shush. Is through the amount of times that you've failed. This failure can, drag you down. But it is actually beneficial in the long term. That game that we're in, when everyone else is running around finding the ammo, shooting the demons, finding the shelter, going up a level, finding the special, you know, bonuses and the, you know, the new suit of armor, all this kind of stuff. You need to get good at that. You need to get better at it. But you can't, because you're not built that way, you can't operate like that for too long. It's soul destroying. You need to find that peace and that space to sit there looking at the internal structure of the reality that you find yourself in. And this will involve losing. If you can find a way to make these two things work, I honestly believe and honestly know through my experience that extraordinary things can be achieved. And trouble is, you're never going to be able to forget or erase those losses or those mistakes. That's just the price you pay for being more conscious, being more of an asshole. Did that make any sense? Yes, it did, didn't it? I believe it did. It makes perfect sense to me. All those things are linked up. It's just kind of what I'm going through at the moment, and I need to clean my teeth more often. They're usually whiter than this. I'll put this video in black and white so you can't see. Take care out there. When the storm comes, tie yourself to the mast, the central pillar of your practice.